Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Okay, well, Joseph Parker, he has been quoted in recent days as saying he'd like to fight the winner of Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder, should that fight get made. Okay, so before I really get into this, full disclosure, I am a Joseph Parker fan and have been riding with him since the beginning. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to critically analyse his unfolding career and talk about what I believe to be missteps he is making along the way. I should also say that this isn't really a video about whether he can beat the fighters mentioned. Let's just get that clear up front. This is more about the perception he's creating among boxing fans by throwing out fighters he'd like to fight. So what's the actual problem here, some of you may be asking? Perception. Perception is reality. And the reality is, Parker has been reported as calling out a number of fighters now since he won the WBO strap last December. The problem he's creating for himself is an image one. He can't realistically fight all the guys he says he wants to fight, especially in a time frame fans will expect. Throw on top of this, we've also had Parker making contradictory statements and not quite being lined up with what his promoters are saying is his likely next move. And I'll qualify this in a moment. So what's the impact here on his image from spraying around names and then not being able to deliver? Well, it goes to the heart of his credibility. That credibility ends up taking a dent. He is becoming one of those guys who throws out a name and gets some publicity, but then there's no delivery. And I'm sure some Parker fans listening right now, you're shaking your head in disagreement telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. But the reality is, this is an emerging problem Parker and his team need to address. Let's step through the name game really quickly. Parker got us all excited earlier in the year when he said, well actually it was the end of last year, when he said he would look to unify with WBC champ Deontay Wilder, that of course being subject to getting past their respective fights at the time, which were April and February respectively. There was a lot said by Parker and indeed Wilder over several weeks, and it was capped with Parker being at Wilder's February fight against Gerald Washington in Alabama. He was there to support his friend and fellow boxer Izu Agono, who was fighting Dominic Breazeale on the Wilder undercard. Great fight that one, by the way. Check it out. But while he was there, he posed with Deontay Wilder and reiterated he wanted Wilder after Hughie Fury. As we know, Parker's fight with Fury was delayed a month to May, and then it was ultimately rescheduled altogether because Fury pulled out with an alleged back injury just 2 weeks before the May 6th fight. So the WBO then allowed Parker to have a voluntary defense as a result of the pullout. So to salvage the May 6th date and not take a complete bath financially, Parker's promoters Duco Events drafted in Romanian Razvan Cojanu. He, of course, was a sparring partner of Parker's, and the end result of the fight was, well, it was an easy win for Parker, but he failed to meet expectation in the eyes of many fans. Generally, he looked okay, but he just couldn't knock Cojanu down. He couldn't really hurt him, and certainly didn't knock him out. Many fans were expecting that. But I guess Cojanu had 100 rounds of sparring. You're going to get a decent idea of how to survive against your opponent if you've had that much time in the ring against someone. And Cojanu himself, he was limited and negative, didn't really give Parker an opportunity to sort of really put him down. But that lackluster result, well, it hasn't been all bad really. It led to several guys immediately calling Parker's name, including Tony Bellew and Dillian Whyte. Parker responded saying he'd like to fight them both. And it was about this time, the Wilder unification talk, it died off completely as Duco changed tack and started talking about Parker campaigning in Britain after the rescheduled Fury fight. They doubled down on this while they were on promotional duties in July, meeting with Eddie Hearn and reiterating Parker's future, should he get past Fury, likely lay in England. Hearn was actually going to be sending Duco some offers. And at the time, I wasn't popular for saying this, but in my view, while it might be the smartest move financially for Parker's career, it would ultimately, if he went the British route, end up being, effectively, it would be a duck on Deontay Wilder. He would be ducking him, given the previous unification talk. I also commented at the time that the whole situation wouldn't sit well with some fans, who were loudly accusing Parker of ducking Wilder. For me, it's only a duck once the duck actually occurs. But certainly it was a bit telegraphed. And, he has to get past Fury first anyway. But the wider point I was making then and I'm making now, and I'm going to expand on it again, Parker is creating a messy situation for himself, which becomes harder and harder to communicate the more names he throws out there. So now we have Parker saying he wants the winner of Wilder-Ortiz should that fight happen. And that comes just days or maybe a week or so after being pictured with Tony Bellew in Vegas in a face-off type situation. That's contradictory in itself, I would think. So throw in also some of what Duco has been saying as well. So recently in Britain and previously they've indicated the sort of staying in Britain and campaigning there. And also from a recent statement to me a few weeks back when they were responding to some comments made by Sir Bob Jones. So Duco said professional boxing is all about making as much money as a fighter possibly can in exchange for losing the least amount of brain cells. It's classic risk versus reward. I think it's pretty fair to take from that Duco statement that it's going to be, targeting fights for Parker that make the most financial sense, which means Tony Bellew, well, he could well be in the offing next, or even Dillian White. And let's remember, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua's promoter, has said the path to Joshua is through Bellew or White. So I have no idea how Wilder or Ortiz now fit into the picture. And you may have seen around the traps, around YouTube and elsewhere, some fans and other channels, they are starting to call Parker on this behavior where he's throwing out names and saying what he would like. In this instance, it's not just smoke. There is a bit of fire there. Whether this is an issue with Parker being a bit too free in how he talks to the media, or maybe things have changed, it's evident he and his team need to get on the same page and get their story straight. Otherwise, these perception issues froth to the surface and start tarnishing what's a pretty decent reputation, and one that is pretty untarnished right now. I know this next bit will probably turn up in the comments because some Joseph Parker fans would have stopped listening by now and they'll be venting. Some will be saying Joseph isn't scared of anyone and he'll take on anyone. And I'm not disputing that for a second. But that's actually beside the point, and it's not the point of this video. Joseph Parker, and this is the point, is needlessly creating a problem for himself. If he keeps doing it, people will be less inclined to believe what he says. So future statements might end up having less impact. People won't believe him. They'll just be like, oh, yeah, he's saying that, why would I believe him? Nothing ever happens. So maybe the solution is, I don't know, maybe media training. A lot of boxers have it. Maybe they need to have some agreed lines and other strategies to ensure that the message getting out is one that doesn't generate videos like these. And you've probably seen and heard some others that are less flattering than this one. Really, it's an easy fix. They just need to come up with a consistent message and stick to it. But the fix, it's a necessary one. What do you make of all this? Storm in a teacup, or a problem he does need to nip in the bud before he loses credibility? Let me know. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment. I'm out.